The story of Soo Kai's return home was meant to be a joyous reunion. Only 3 weeks earlier he had kissed his newborn baby goodbye for the very first time, a farewell so tender, so filled with unspoken fear and love, that it left his wife Tan Songyun, trembling in the doorway with tears she tried desperately to hide for Soo Kai. The trip was necessary, but his heart was torn in two, one half soaring with duty, the other anchored at home, where his wife cradled the tiny miracle they had just welcomed into the world. He had promised he would come back quickly. He had promised that no distance, no duty, and no storm would keep him from holding his child again. What no one knew was that fate was about to test that promise in the most harrowing way imaginable. The memory of that goodbye lingered in Soo Kai's mind as he boarded the flight 3 weeks earlier. He could still see his baby's tiny fists curling in sleep, hear the soft hum of his wife's lullaby, and feel the weight of leaving behind a life that had only just begun. He had whispered, "I'll be back before you know it," kissing the baby's forehead one last time. Tan Songyun had stood silently by the door, her eyes red but her smile unwavering. She wanted to be strong for him and for their child. But as the car drove him away, she collapsed against the doorframe, clutching her baby as though holding tighter would make the hours pass faster. For 3 weeks, her world had been a blur of sleepless nights and quiet prayers. Every message from Soo Kai was a lifeline. One more meeting. He would text, "I'll be home soon," and now, finally, that day had come. The plane was packed with passengers, businessmen returning from conferences, families eager to reunite, and colleagues sharing stories of work and laughter. Soo Kai, seated near the window, found comfort in the view of the clouds stretching endlessly across the sky. His colleague, seated beside him, nudged him awake when the meal service came around. They joked quietly about the welcome home feasts waiting for them, but underneath his laughter, Soo Kai's thoughts were far away. He pictured his wife's smile, his baby's sleepy yawns. He imagined walking through the front door, scooping his child into his arms, and whispering the words he had rehearsed every night in his mind, "Daddy's home." The descent announcement broke through his daydream. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon be preparing for landing." Relief washed over him. He was almost there. Almost home, and then everything changed. The first jolt felt like turbulence, the kind that usually passes in moments. But then came the second, harder, sharper. Overhead compartments rattled, oxygen masks shook loose, and frightened cries filled the cabin. Soo Kai gripped the armrest, his heart pounding. The captain's voice crackled through the intercom, urging calm, but the tremor in his tone betrayed the gravity of the situation. The plane was in distress as alarms blared. Soo Kai's thoughts raced. He thought of his wife waiting. He thought of his baby, who had only known him for 3 fleeting weeks. He thought of the promise he had made that he would return. The cabin tilted. Luggage spilled across the aisle. People prayed, screamed, reached for loved ones. His colleague grabbed his hand, the two men locking eyes in silent terror. Soo Kai whispered a prayer of his own, not for himself, but for the child who might grow up never knowing his father. And then the world went black. The crash, the impact was deafening, metal grinding against earth, glass shattering, screams dissolving into chaos. In those few seconds, time seemed to split open. Pain and silence collided, leaving only the sound of rushing air and groaning steel. When Soo Kai opened his eyes, smoke filled the cabin. His body ached, every breath heavy with dust and fear. Beside him, his colleagues stirred, groaning, blood staining his shirt. They were alive but barely. Around them, injured passengers cried out, some motionless, others scrambling in desperation to escape. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, pulling survivors from the wreckage. Soo Kai, semi-conscious, was carried out on a stretcher, his colleague beside him. Cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed. Headlines began to write themselves. Plane crash horror rushed to the hospital. The sirens wailed as ambulances tore through the city, carrying Soo Kai and his colleague to the nearest hospital. Doctors and nurses flooded the emergency room, their faces tense but focused. Soo Kai drifted in and out of consciousness, the image of his baby's face flickering like a fragile candle flame in his mind. News spread quickly. Fans, friends and loved ones flooded social media with prayers and disbelief. Stay strong. Soo-kai praying for his recovery. May he return to his wife and child. Meanwhile, Tan Songyun's world shattered the moment the phone rang. She clutched her baby to her chest as the words sank in. Plane crash. Hospital, critical condition. Her knees buckled, tears streaming. But she whispered fiercely to her child, Daddy will fight. He has to. Every second in the hospital felt like an eternity. Soo-kai lay in intensive care. Machines beeping steadily. Doctors working tirelessly to stabilize him. His colleague, though badly injured, managed to squeeze a nurse's hand, a faint sign of life at home. Tan Songyun sat by the crib, rocking her baby who gurgled innocently, unaware of the storm raging around them. She whispered lullabies through her tears, willing the universe to bring her husband back. Your father is strong, she murmured. He promised he'd return. And he will, as doctors fought to save him. Soo-kai's unconscious mind wandered. He relived the first time he had held his baby, the tiny heartbeat pressed against his chest, the unbelievable weight of responsibility settling into his arms. He remembered laughing softly as his baby clenched his finger, so small yet so certain. He remembered telling Tan Songyun, I never knew my heart could feel this full, and she had smiled, exhausted but radiant, whispering, this is only the beginning. Those memories, bright as lanterns in the dark, became his lifeline. He could not let go, not yet. Media frenzy outside the hospital. Reporters gathered in droves. Fans lit candles, held up signs that read, Stay strong, Soo-kai, and prayed openly in the streets. News channels broadcast hourly updates. Every whisper from inside the hospital spread like wildfire online. Some headlines read, Soo-kai fights for life after plane crash. From fatherhood to near tragedy, Soo-kai's story captivates millions. Fans hold vigil for actor and colleague in critical condition. For many, it was no longer about celebrity gossip. It was about a man, a husband, a father, fighting to keep the most important promise of his life. Hashtag Tan Songyun's vigil. Tan Songyun refused to leave the hospital. She sat by Soo-kai's bed, their baby in her arms, the machines beeping, the only sound breaking the silence. She whispered stories to him, the same way she whispered to their baby at night. Do you remember, she said softly, stroking his hand. The way you looked at her when she was born. You said she was the most beautiful thing you had ever seen. You can't leave her now. She's waiting for you. We both are. Her tears fell freely, but her voice never wavered. She believed, with every fiber of her being, that he could hear her. That somewhere deep inside, he was listening. Hashtag the world holds its breath. Hours turned into days. Doctors delivered cautious updates. His condition was critical but stable. His colleague, too, was still fighting across the world. Fans kept vigil online. Hashtags trended, pray for Soo-kai. Hashtag stay strong Tan Songyun. Hashtag fighting for baby Kai. He just became a father. Please let him have more time. Prayers from around the world. Stay with us. Soo-kai. Love is stronger than tragedy. It was no longer just a personal tragedy. It had become a global story of love, resilience, and the fragile thread that binds life together. Somewhere in the quiet of the hospital room, Soo-kai stirred. His hand twitched. His eyelids fluttered. For a brief moment Tan Songyun gasped, certain he had heard her, and maybe he had. Maybe he had remembered the promise he had made. The one he whispered over his baby's tiny head before leaving, I'll be back before you know it. Soo-kai's fate hangs in the balance. Doctors remain cautious but hopeful. His wife refuses to leave his side. His baby sleeps, unaware of the battle his father is waging just to hold him again. And somewhere between life and death, Soo-kai's promise echoes, I'll be back before you know it. Will he keep that promise? Will his story end in tragedy? Or will love and determination guide him back to the family waiting for him? One thing is certain, the world is watching, hearts in their throats, praying for the day Soo-kai opens his eyes and whispers the words that will heal them all. Daddy's home.